Let's talk about how you can actually get involved. And before we do this, I have to put out another word of caution. This is still the Wild West. And especially if you've been around crypto for a while, then you might think, oh man, this is all basically straightforward and we know exactly what's going on, and yeah, so everybody who loses money is just stupid and so on. And you can obviously make a case for all of these, but still the space isn't nearly where it needs to be, and there is still a lot to be done, and normal people are far from from the point where they should be exposed to these structures for all these wicked reasons. And actually, two things that you really need to take into consideration when thinking about getting involved with a DAO is that, first of all, regardless of how well designed this whole system is, you can still have bugs, right? And there were big bugs that have led to terrible outcomes in the past years. So this is something that you just need to take into account, right? It's just the nature of the beast. And the other thing that I would really encourage you to do is just to tame the wild horse a little bit, is understand the mission of the project. This is extremely important because when you're doing your research on what to dedicate yourself to, many times you're not going to find people that you can relate to or that have any social skin in the game, because they might be anonymous or pseudonymous. So really dig into what this organization is really trying to do, and then also try to find more verification for this. And even if your best friend says, hey, you actually have to get on board, you don't want to break up your friendship because you've lost everything in it, okay? So really try to understand, is this a noble cause? Is this something that I want to get into? And then take the next steps. Now, when you are mentally prepared for this, then what I would really recommend you to do is essentially 3 steps. So the first should always be, or can be, you can refer to an overview or search for DAO overview on the web or whatever, just to get like a little bit of a broad picture. Then the second step I would recommend is that you join a Discord and just read through what people are talking about. And then as a third step, and this should only come after the second step, is chime in on a discussion. Okay, so it's okay to get involved early, but you should know at this point what kind of the theme is, what people are talking about, and you can save many people lots of time if you just take a moment to really try to understand what's going on, but then also get involved. And I would like to leave this with 2 hacks that are quite practical. First being, be nice. So it can be tempting to act like a crazy person because you see other people do it, but in fact you're just wasting people's time. And you don't need to be goofy for people to like you. So this is something that should be the case everywhere, or that should come natural to everybody, but still you have these weird people all over the place in places where you really don't want to have this. The second hack that I would recommend is to keep your expectations low. Now, some DAOs are quite established and need to get things done through working groups, and you will certainly somehow have to file in. You have to, if you want to contribute something and it's valuable to everybody, then this is quickly going to resolve. But just keep in mind that there are some people who are extremely committed to this journey, and they're taking responsibility for things, and they will appreciate if you let them do your thing. And if you then have a great proposal, then you will be heard. I can assure you that. Otherwise, it might not be the best place for you to be in. But in general, you will get positive feedback, or at least a response. Now, the second theme on this is on this hack to keep your expectations low is that you will not get rich overnight by simply joining a server. Okay, so if you think you can contribute, then politely offer what you have in mind and maybe just join for the experience, right? So many DAOs actually have payment mechanisms and reward mechanisms installed, but if you're just getting started, then it's a good idea to just join for the experience. Because one thing you have to keep in mind is DAOs are not built to make you rich, but to complete a mission and to help everybody walk towards a common goal. And so in that sense, the individual isn't as pronounced. And while you do have people that are walking away with, a regular income or so from this, it is usually because they've really contributed to this, maybe just right from the beginning, but also down the line, and the community recognizes that they're making a difference. So with that, I would leave it actually, and before we go to a conclusion, I would really like to welcome you to just join the ride. It's quite an interesting place. And it's growing, and there is a lot of quirky stuff going on, but also lots of good stuff. So I can only repeat the invitation to join any of these DAOs, or to even consider creating your own. But if you don't have much experience with it, then I guess the former is going to be the right starting point for you. Now, to conclude, will everything become a DAO? I think not necessarily, and certainly not now, but many organizations and many projects will become such a structure, or parallel structures will be built to either compete with the established ones or to support the established ones in some capacity or to fill some gaps. The reason for that is DAOs are superior in many situations as they're generally user-owned from the start, and the ones that actually make it through will be far stronger because the incentives are aligned in a proper way. Now, we also talked a little bit about the problems of these DAOs, and by no means I want to suggest that DAOs are the absolute truth to everything and are just perfect in every way. This is absolutely not the case, and I hope that I made this clear, but you should be conscious of what you're doing and apply common sense to really understand, is this something for you? Yeah. And also we touched upon some of the problems that you will encounter, and it's not just on the legal side but also on the technical side. Some incentive schemes are simply not set up as good as they could, and so these are just things that are eventually going to fade away as there are conventions and standards being applied, but at the moment, as I said, it's just a wild west, and everybody is pretty much on their own to figure out what's going on. We also talked a little bit about the advantages, and I briefly mentioned some of them already. But essentially what you can take away from this is that it's in some way a representation of existing human networks, except that they're a lot more scalable and can operate independently. And one thing that I want you to take away is that a lot of brainpower is currently going into the design of proper tools and standards and procedures and so on and so forth. As to my knowledge, not as much as for public companies, for instance, right, or private limited companies or so. This has been around forever, and there isn't too much innovation to be expected because it's also so deeply tied into the legal framework that exists. And my personal hope is that the current bonanza isn't calling the legislators and essentially suggests to them or lets them do things that are beyond repair. But anyways, to me there are some huge advantages in essentially representation of these human networks, and I'm really looking forward to seeing more of these structures. All in all, If I were you, then I wouldn't let myself get distracted or discouraged by the limitations, and focus on the upsides of it, and maybe take a look at some really well-functioning projects, and try to understand what this is all about and why it works well, how it is able to complete its mission, and then also look at some negative examples and understand what the failure mode might be in some places. And at the time you're watching this video, there might be some other noise on Twitter, but if you ask me, then DAOs are here to stay, quite literally, since you can't simply turn them off. But for all the reasons that I've mentioned throughout the series, this is just a fantastic form, or it bears a lot of potential to replace other forms of human organization in a very efficient manner. And this is something really to look forward to. All right, now, this closes this series. I really hope that you were able to get something out of it, and that, you got the points that you wanted to see. And again, if you have any questions on how to set up a DAO, how to run a DAO or so, then don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're happy to have a quick chat, or also leave a comment or so in below these videos. We're constantly monitoring them, and if there's anything coming up, then we're happy to respond.